All right, here's my specialized chisel. So I already talked about the bike itself, at least my first ride. So now I'm gonna talk about the tires. These tires are the Vitorria Peyote XC Race. So these tires surprisingly does really well. I was impressed by considering how short that center is. It's like there's like hardly anything there. On a knobby, on a full knobby, if my center knobs were this low, I would have gotten rid of it long before I even gotten this low. But with this bike, I was surprised at how much traction and grip it had. Climbing traction felt surprisingly well. It did. I think it did fine climbing traction. It's the downhill going straight braking traction was where it was kind of inadequate, especially as a front tire. The rear tire was okay. No, the rear tire locks up really kind of easily and slides around a little bit because again, this flat section is not that much traction, and that's fine. As for the rear, but the front on loose stuff, if it wasn't loose, it's perfectly fine. But if on loose stuff, for the front, how shallow these knobs are. Basically this is a semi slick. It's not able to dig through the loose stuff, so it didn't have much traction. Hard braking traction going straight, fast in loose stuff. I couldn't like just stop. Basically I couldn't stop at will. Sometimes you're going downhill and you want to stop really fast and kind of you're hard on the brakes and you can kind of pick a point on the trail like, oh, I want to stop exactly at that spot. I can't do that with this bike. I'll be like, I'm thinking, oh, okay, I want to stop, but it won't because it's not enough traction. If I squeeze the brakes any harder, it'll lock up the brake and the front end will slide. So I have to kind of drag it further down. So loose stuff. These tires are for downhill anyways. Straight, these tires I don't recommend it for that. I think I'm waiting for the Mescal to come back in stock so I could get a Mescal and put it in front. I think that would be perfect for this. But I think that's probably the only real downside for this. Side cornering, these knobs, they're plenty fine for cross country. I didn't have any problems cornering at all with this bike. Even in somewhat loose stuff, it's enough. There's enough knob there to dig through some of that loose stuff. So it felt okay. I really dig these tires. They were really fast rolling. I mean, I was climbing on this bike. Yeah, the bike itself is also lighter, but I think because of these tires, I was climbing on trails that on my trail bike, and whatever gear I was in, whatever gear I was in, on this bike, I was able to climb like one gear taller, and it felt like the same. It felt the same. It didn't feel any harder than on my trail bike, and I think because of these tires, because of how light they are, and how fast they roll. Now these wheels I have are a little bit lighter than my trail bike wheels, and the bike itself is certainly lighter than my trail bike. But I think the biggest effect that you feel as far as weight is the weight of the tires. Weight of the tires, because it's so far out on the rotational mass. It matters more than say the weight of the hub or the spokes or the rim. The tires weight matters most, and because it's light and very fast rolling, it climbs surprisingly well. And when you accelerate, you can feel that lightness of the tire and that low rolling resistance. Even climbing up, it felt really good in that regards. Again, I think the only bad thing about it is that in loose stuff, because the center is not tall enough, it's not able to dig through the loose stuff. So, and this, this is not really meant for that. So I think if I had the Moscow in the front, I think I'll be fine. So for sure, I want a Moscow in the front. Once I put the Moscow in the front, I will reevaluate the rear if I'm okay with it or not. If I'm not, then I will probably put a Moscow in the rear as well. But as of right now, I'm gonna leave the Peyote in the rear, and I for sure I want to get rid of the Peyote in the front. It's just on the loose stuff again. It was a little too sketchy on the loose stuff. But yeah, so I'm really digging these tires, and these tires are. I don't think they're the lightest tires, but they're one of the lightest tires. But I think they are like the lightest tires that gives you surprisingly good traction. Of the light tires that I've tried, these gave me better traction. I mean, for example, I've used a Recon Race in the back before, not on this bike, on a different bike. But this bike has more traction than the Recon Race has. And the Recon Race, the center knobs are actually taller than this one is. It's actual, knobs just like the Recon. It's just like the regular Recon, but just not as tall, right? And that bike was more as a rear tire. I only use it for a rear tire. I never use it for a front. That tire was more a little bit more loose, more sketchy than this tire is. At least what it felt like to me. And also this tire is actually lighter, and the Recon Race that I used, it was actually it was a 2.25, and this one's a 2.4, so this one's a little bit wider, so that could also be a reason why it gives a little bit more traction, because it's a little bit wider. But because the Recon Race, the side knob is actually big like this, and actually side knob wise, it going cornering and stuff, it felt fine. It was that straight center line traction that was I don't think as good as this. Like for example, even when I'm like climbing roots or rocks, more technical climbing, these tires felt way better than the Recon Race does. The Recon Race will spin out easier. It spins out on those edges easier than this bike does. So it definitely has more traction, and even on the downhill too, it actually has more traction than the Recon Race. At least the Recon Race in a 2.25. I never tried the Recon Race in a 2.4, so I don't know. So I can't say. But I'm pretty sure the 2.4 Recon Race is probably more grippy than the 2.25. And the reason why I say that is because on the regular Recons, I have I started running when I first started using the Recons. I first started with a 2.4 Recons, then I went to a 2.6, and the 2.6 was like noticeably more traction than the 2.4s. So I can't say as far as the 2.4 Recons go, or 2.4 Recon Race goes, if it grips better than this or as good as this or not. But for sure it will grip better than the 2.25 Recon Race. But again, looking at the weight, the 2.25 Recon Race is still heavier than this 2.4 Peyote. So this was that. And I think, and this is by what Vitorria. I think what other brand had some really light tires? I think Pirelli. God, now I can't remember the models. Pirelli has some really light cross-country tires too. I think they might be even lighter than these, a little bit, or either about the same weight or slightly lighter. But those ones, they have the lightweight going, but they don't have the traction, from what I've read about, and because I've never ridden them, so I can't say. But from other people that's used both these tires, they say that the Vitorria just has more grip, more traction than anything else in its class, basically. In its this kind of a semi-slick cross-country racing tires. They're pretty comparable in weight, but these ones have much more grip than what appears to be, because of how short the center knobs are. But yeah, anyway, so that's my thought on these tires. Now, if you're doing just, the thing is, these things are not meant for loose, right? The thing with that is that it doesn't matter what trails you're doing, even if it's like easy, clean trails. No matter what, there's always going to be patches here and there that has looseness to it, and usually those where there's looseness, where it's more fluffy, where the dirt and it's been broken up and stuff. The reason why that is because that's what people break. Those are the spots where people are on the brakes. So when people are on the brakes, that will cause the trail to get more looser, right? Get more powdery and sandy or whatever, right? And that's when you need the most traction. It's in those sections where you're braking, and these tires, at least for the front, it's not good for that because it's not able to dig down, do that looseness. It's not it's not deep enough. Not the height here is not tall enough to do the deepness of the looseness, right? So it's hard to say that that even though these tires weren't designed for loose stuff, it's hard to say that you can say, oh, what about like easier trails? Even easier trails, the reality is that there are sections that may be a little bit harder and such. The sections where people will brake. Well, where most people will brake. Those are the sections where it's loose, right? So even on easier trails, there's always going to be those sections, and these are not very good for that. At least not for the front. So I think they'd be fine for the back, but the front, I think the Mascals would be ideal. So I think that's the ideal combination: Peyote in the back and Mascal in the front, for like cross country style stuff and blue trails, versus black trails, right? If you do harder blue trails or easy black trails, you might want to go with, say, Mascals both front and rear, right? Because the Mascals, they weigh the same as these Peyotes, right? Same weight. It's just a little bit. The center knob here is more knobby and a little bit taller, but there's less knobs. And here you see, even though it's short, but it has a lot of these little lines. There's a lot of it. So all those adds up to I think being the same weight, right? Because there's a lot of it, even though it's short. Whereas the Mascal, there's less. There's individual knobs like these, but they're individual knobs, and they don't cover this long distance. So imagine all that long distance there. This is like 1.5 inches or something like that. Imagine that 1.5 inches, instead of being 1.5 inches long, it's into like a little knob. Then also now it's still a bit taller, right? So they come out to be the same weight as the Mascals and Peyote cross country race. They're the same weight, right? Same casing, I believe. I think even the same compound. It's just the difference of the threads themselves, different threads. But anyways, yeah. So that's my thoughts on these tires. So once the Mascal comes in stock, I'm gonna probably order 2 and run 1 in the front. See how I like that combo. And if it's good in the front and it's not good enough in the back, then I will probably put both. But I think, as of right now, I think that combo of the Peyote in the back and Mascal in the front, I think would be good, especially for a cross country bike. I think it would be fine. Anyways, thanks for watching.